everyone. I hope you're all doing well and keeping safe. Today we're back with our medical astrology series, and today we're going to discuss on Sun medical astrology. So I welcome Kṣaṇāti. Namaste, Kṣaṇāti.
Namaste, Navjeet. So wonderful to be here with you in the astrological community to really dive deep into our medical Jyotish series, where we're going to take a look at the effects of medical astrology as it relates to the different planets and therefore the different signs, some of the health problems that show up based on planetary positions. And we're going to focus a lot on Ayurvedic remedies in terms of diet, herbs, and certain Ayurvedic techniques to improve the medical astrology, so to increase the longevity. One of the things I like to focus on is an ancient sutra, Dhammartakama mokshanam arogya mula mutamam rogas tasyaha paraha shreyasho jiva tasya cha. And the basic meaning behind this mantra is that the purpose of life is to achieve the Vedic four aims, dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. But we're only able to achieve those four aims of life when we have the longest life possible. And that's why the great science of Ayurveda was created, so that we have enough health as far as the length of our life and the quality of life, so we can achieve dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. And so the real energy of why we're doing this medical astrology is to increase the length and quality of life for our followers and lovers of Jyotish, so that they can achieve the Vedic four aims of life. And we're going to focus today on the sun, Surya Deva, and therefore the sign Leo, which it rules. And we're going to dive deep into the medical vulnerabilities and the appropriate remedies for them. So we'll start with a quick chant to Surya Deva to honor the sun and bring the sun into our session together today. So I hope everyone enjoys this. Jabaka suma shanka shamka shapaya mahadutim tamorim sarvapapanganam pranatusmi davakaram. Om Jabaka suma shanka shamka shapaya mahadutim tamorim sarvapapanganam pranatusmi davakaram. Om Jabaka suma shanka shamka shapaya mahadutim tamorim sarvapapanganam pranatusmi davakaram. Om Ram Hrim Ram Sahasuraya Namaha. 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 Hari Om. Om Namah Shivaya. Namaste. Blessings and welcome, everyone. So excited to dive back into our medical Jyotish discussion. And we're going to break it down by the planet and then the signs which that planet rules, and discuss a lot of the different vulnerabilities that show up there and then how to treat them. The first thing we're going to discuss today is Surya, the sun. Now, the sun has signification for health issues as it relates to the heart. The heart is a really strong indication for the medical astrology as it relates to the sun. And this includes the Leo, the Leo ascendant, Sun Leo, Sun Atmakara can also have heart-related issues. Now, depending on the planetary dignity of the sun, especially if you're a Leo ascendant, where the house position of the sun, whether it's an exaltation, debilitation, mula tricona, it can show whether those difficulties are very going to be common throughout the life or whether it's more of a minor issue. But either way, if the sun has a strong position in the chart, these are things that you're going to want to have to keep in mind. Now, addition to the heart, issues with the sun can affect the back. They can affect the blood, the rasa and rakta of the system, the blood and the plasma. It can affect the brain. There's a strong effect with the sun where it can affect the brain of the individual. And also the sun has to do with the overall vitality, the strength of the individual. From an emotional perspective, because we also want to do some psychological medical astrology, the sun has to do with your confidence, your courage, your empowerment, and your belief in yourself. So from a psychological medical Jyotish perspective, issues with the sun can affect your self-esteem, the self-confidence, and a poorly positioned sun or an afflicted sun can either cause an over-exuberance of the ego, an egotistical or narcissistic nature, or a really lack of self-confidence. So the question is, when we look at the medical astrology of the sun, a lot of times when we talk about the strength of a planet, especially when we're talking about the strength of the sun, we usually associate it as being a positive or benefic thing, right? An exalted sun in Aries, a sun in its Mula Trikona position of Leo, a sun in a favorable position. That is usually a good thing. But in the sense of medical astrology, it increases the quality of the dosha. And so when we get into the medical astrology side of things, we understand that sun is a Pitta planet. And even if the sun is in a good position, it can increase the strength of the sun or the overall bala. And if you're a lover of Jyotish, you can use the Shud Bala calculation to understand the strength of your sun to see, well, am I going to have Pitta related issues? Because if sun is the strongest planet in your chart, you're certainly going to have Pitta related issues. Now, because the sun is associated with Leo, which is the fifth sign, a lot of the health difficulties of the sun, even if you don't have a sun medical vulnerability, the fifth house can relate to those solar medical issues in your chart, where you deal with issues of the heart valve or the belly or the spine. And it can also show up as issues with the blood and the back. So there's lots of different ways to look at this medical astrology perspective, and they all kind of overlap. But we're looking with the sun, we're looking with Leo, and we're also looking with fifth house position to understand some of these medical vulnerabilities. Now,
I know two people who have sun in Leo, and one of them has heart valve issue and lots of heart problems, and other one just had a minor heart attack, and they very young. So we're saying early, like 20s. The other person is just even not 30. So these two things are observed.
Thank you for sharing that. That reminds me of a very interesting point, because we looked at the different karmic nature of the different signs, and Leo has a fixed karmic nature. So when you talk about some of the vulnerabilities showing up for people, even in the earlier portion of their life, a lot of times that could be because Leo karma is a fixed karma. So it's not really something they necessarily have that much influence over, right? When it comes to the fixed karmas, it's kind of something that's unavoidable. Now, it can be healed through spirituality and, of course, through the guidance of a Sat Guru like Amma, Neem Karoli Baba, Yogananda, etc. But still, it's something that you might have to deal with and work on. And so if you have this kind of Leo sun energy in your chart that's affecting your heart or your blood or your chest or your vitality and your strength, one of the things that we can see is like a sun in Aries person, it gives them a lot of like vitality and courage and empowerment and strength. When a debilitation of the sun in Libra, these people have a hard time with energy. They can lack that, and this could relate to the adrenal system as well. It can have to, which relates to the blood. So there could be a real serious lack of energy. So the question is, when you're dealing with these sun-related issues, is it due to like an excessive amount of Pitta or dushti, a lack of Pitta, right? A lack of healthy Pitta in the body, right? And this could cause all sorts of energetic issues. And on the other side of it, if the sun is in Leo, that means that Pitta is really high. So you have to do some Pitta pacification. For the purposes of this series, we're going to talk about the strength of how to pacify an excessive sun dosha, and also some of the health difficulties that show up in that scenario. Now, we have to understand the doshic nature of all of the planets, because when a planet is conjunct or in the sign of the other planet, it's going to relate to those other doshas as well. For example, Saturn and Rahu are Vata planets. So a lot of times if you have sun in Saturn signs or sun conjunction Saturn, sun conjunction Rahu, You have Vata pushing Pitta. You have the wind pushing the fire. And this actually creates more of an issue than just a double kind of Pitta energy, right? Sun Aries, Sun Leo, the Vata pushing Pitta, because for severe disease to manifest, which is, disease in its later stages, which are potentially fatal, like cancer, and serious issues like that, they're tridoshic in their nature. Fatal diseases don't just manifest from one dosha, but manifest from an accumulation and an activation from all of the doshas interacting with each other. So we'll start to get into the healing of it, but just so you understand, well, do I have this medical vulnerability? It's very simple. Are you a Leo ascendant? Then you do have to be careful of these things. If you are a Leo ascendant, then where is the sun? Because you have to look at the depositorship. If the sun is in a difficult position, right? So the sun, if you're a Leo ascendant, you might have issues with the heart. But if it's depositing in Taurus, because your sun's in Taurus or your sun's in the second house, then it's going to show up in some other areas as well, because the second house rules the mouth and the throat. So you can think of like mouth and throat, and you can just start to see the interaction. Well, what is that relationship between the mouth and the throat? If it's the sun, that's Pitta. So you can see gastro reflux, right? Because that's when, oh, I have heartburn and now my throat hurts and I have all this excess of mucus and burning in my throat. So again, that's if you're a Leo ascendant, but the sun's in Taurus, the sun's in the second house. Let's say that the sun is now in Capricorn if you're a Leo ascendant, or the sun's in the 10th house. Like, for example, I have sun in the 10th house. This can create allergies. The sun is in the Saturn sign. That's the Vata pushing Pitta situation. So these issues with the allergies, I have the sun in the 10th house. And so I've had allergies throughout my lifetime, and I have to keep my Pitta pacified so that those allergies don't activate. And, since I focused on some of the Ayurvedic remedies that were given to me about how to pacify my Pitta, when I used to spend time with cats, when I was a young child, I didn't even know I had an allergy. And I slept over my uncle's house, and he had 3 cats. And due to the position of my sun, and I also have K2 in Leo, so there's a strong sun influence there. I woke up and my eyes were sealed shut from the plaque because of the allergy.
Right.
Now, since I've learned Ayurveda and I try to eat a more pacifying diet to keep my Pitta calm, I can actually hang out with cats now. So a lot of times, people think these health issues, they're permanent. And a lot of times with Leo and the sun, they are permanent, right? I'm still allergic to cats, but now due to the pacification using Ayurveda, my nose itches, I might sneeze a few times, but am I having an anaphylactic reaction or my eyes sealing shut? Not anymore. So a lot of times with medical astrology, it's really remedial. And we're trying to apply those remedies so that you may achieve the 4 aims of life. And it gets really deep because let's say your Leo ascendant is now positioning itself in the 10th house. So that would mean that aim of life, because of the 10th house activation, is Artabhava. So the sun is supposed to be helping you achieve Artabhava, Dhammartha Kama Mokshanam, right? The 4 aims of life. And so if your allergies are really bad, it's going to get in the way of your financial success. You can see the connection between the medical astrology and you achieving those aims of life. If your allergies are horrible, if you're dealing with nervous system issues, right? I have the sun in the 10th house. I have had, and it's combust with Mercury there. I've had nervous system issues, and I've worked on pacifying them. And when my nervous issues were really bad at times, I actually had to take a break from doing YouTube, and I had to take a break from doing Jyotish consultations. And now that I pacify those things in my life through an Ayurvedic lifestyle, you can work on improving those things. So again, just to summarize, you're looking at the position of Leo. Are there planets in Leo? Are you looking at the position, if you're a Leo ascendant, what is the position of your sun? In the initial video, we talked a lot about what are the different house positions. Those are also the different sign positions, right? The Aries, the first house is the face. The Taurus, the second house is the mouth. The third house is the ear. The fourth house is the chest, the lungs, digestion. And so you have to look at the position to see, okay, well, where is that Pitta showing up for you, right? If the Pitta is in your digestive system, you're going to deal with heat in your digestive system. If Pitta is in the eighth house, right? The sun is in the eighth house. You could be at risk for colitis. You could be at risk for irritable bowel. So you have to take into effect all of the different intricacies that show up in the medical astrology. But just knowing that you have a sun, Leo, or fifth house related issue, even if your issue is of the heart, of the back, of the blood, you can look at the fifth house, Leo, or the sun to see, okay, well, how is this problem showing up? So the first thing that you want to do when it comes to medical astrology is the diagnosis of what you're suffering from, to see it in your chart, or maybe you have a history of it in your family and you're not sure if and when it's going to manifest for you, and taking a look at your chart through the dosha activation or through the transit activation, you can see when that's going to be showing up for you. So that's just a little bit of the diagnosis side. I wanted to spend most of the time today focusing on remedies, but I want you to understand how to kind of see it in your chart, and so you can get the appropriate remedies. But again, when it comes to being a doctor, we don't really want to be our own doctor, right? And there is the beautiful science of self-healing, and we learn the proper dinacharya and Ayurvedic lifestyle to facilitate our self-healing. But I wouldn't say that if you have a serious heart problem, you should be your own doctor. I mean, I have clients come to me, and I learned this from Dr. Kṣaṇāti at the Ayurvedic Institute, and they might have cancer, they might have HIV or AIDS, they might have diabetes, and they want to do it all natural. And I support the freedom to do it how you want to do it, but it never hurts to get a second opinion. And if someone comes to me for medical astrology, I encourage them actually to work with allopathy. A lot of times in Ayurveda, you think that it's a one or the other, but Dr. Lad, who is the founder of Ayurveda in the Western world, taught us that the future is integrative medicine. And so sometimes my clients who have serious medical issues, I outsource an Ayurvedic practitioner, and I encourage them to work with a allopathic practitioner, especially if that doesn't mean you have to get chemotherapy, but you need to be working with an allopathic practitioner, and we all work together. I talk to the allopathic practitioner and the Ayurvedic practitioner. They talk to each other. They talk to me, and it's a homeopathic, holistic approach to healing, because I do really believe that taking things from one specific model and not being open to others, you're only limiting yourself from the potential here. And my Ayurvedic teacher, Dr. Vasant Lad, the future is of integrative medicine. Like, even here in Philadelphia, one of the major hospitals, Jefferson, now is an integrative medical program where you can go there, you can get acupuncture, you can get Ayurveda, Chinese herbalism, and then you can go upstairs and get an X-ray or MRI. So there's really no limit to the future of medicine, and we all really want to be open-minded to each other. That's just my little spiel on that piece. I hope I didn't offend anyone. I'm not saying that you can't do it all natural. I'm saying it doesn't hurt to be open-minded to different systems, right? Especially when we're dealing with serious medical issues.
I 100% agree with you, Ksanati, because integrative medicine is the future. I agree, because you just need to look at all aspects, right? So there are some certain things which naturally, I mean, if it's gone to a very serious level, because I feel it's more precaution, naturally, how your lifestyle, holistic lifestyle, and how you're living. And if something's come, you just support it with natural, including the allopathic or homeopathic or whatever you want to, you can use a little bit of everything.
Yeah, I'm happy that you feel the same way as me about this, because I think there needs to be as many people as possible in our field that are trying to encourage people to be open-minded to all sorts of different perspectives. So You heard it
Yes.
from both of us out there, right? I hope that's cool with everybody. We're coming from a place of love. We're coming from a place of wanting to ensure your longevity to achieve the four Vedic aims of life. And we're focusing on medical astrology. And now we're going to talk about Ayurvedic remedies for the sun, for Leo, for fifth house type stuff. But we do want you to be open-minded to all perspectives, right? So moving on, now we're going to discuss some of the remedial approach. Now, the first thing is diet. When there's Pitta related issues, usually associated with the sun, you want to eat a Pitta pacifying diet. And there's lots of information out there about Pitta pacification. But the primary things that you want to understand is that if you have this health vulnerability in your chart and you start eating a Pitta pacifying diet earlier in your life before these health issues manifest, they're way less likely to manifest, right? So the best type of maintenance is preventative maintenance. When it's a lot more difficult, as I learned from Dr. Lad, to heal an issue once it's already become such a huge problem. You can pacify it, you can lessen the issue, but the best thing that you can do is the preventative maintenance. So even if you don't have heart valve issues, heart murmur, horrible Pitta related digestive problems, blood anemia issues with heat in your blood and skin problems, whatever it might be that relates to the Pitta in your body, it doesn't mean that you have to have that before you start kind of doing some of these remedies. So the first thing is the don'ts when it comes to diet. The big don'ts when it comes to diet, if you have Sun, Leo, Pitta related issues, is you really want to avoid spicy food. I know it sounds like common sense, but a lot of Pitta people, if you're like me, I got Mars in the second house, you love spicy food. And the more it accumulates, the actual Dr. Lott explained this phenomenon, which is when especially when there's ama there, which is toxicity with the Pitta related issues, instead of having healthy cravings to balance it, you have unhealthy cravings to make it worse because the body becomes polluted. When the body becomes polluted, then the desire for the healthy things. So just keep in mind that it's not necessarily about what you want isn't always what your body needs. Only if there's low toxicity or bacteria in the body, not excessive amounts of undigested food, are we really going to crave the healthy things. So the first don't is try to avoid spicy food, hot sauces, hot peppers. It's raw garlic. Like you want to avoid things that are excessively spicy. And I'm not necessarily talking about turmeric and cumin and, cooked ginger powder. Those are less spicy, but it's really the habanero, the jalapenos, the hot sauces, the excessive amounts of cayenne pepper that you really want to avoid if you're in Pitta, or have sun-related issues. You also want to avoid excessive sour things. Sour is not really good for any sun-related issues, especially the digestive ones. The digestive organ itself is already quite acidic. So if you add more acidity to that situation through the consumption of sour things, it's just going to make it worse. So you really do want to avoid like lemon and orange and kombucha. Everyone thinks kombucha is healthy. Not if you're Pitta. It's more of supportive for a kapha type person, or even vata, but not really Pitta. You want to avoid beer. Anything fermented, if you have a Pitta issue, is not something that you really no liquor, no beer, no wine. These are all very Pitta aggravating things. And the thing is that Pitta people tend to like alcohol because they're go, 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 go. And it just kind of helps them relax and take the edge off. But Dr. Lad used to say whiskey is risky if you're a Pitta. So be careful with the consumption of alcohol if you do have these heart or sun or Leo related issues in your system. And those are just some of the primary things that you want to avoid. These are taste, because in Ayurveda, it's the quality of the taste of the food. The 5 different tastes as they show up are either going to be pacifying towards the issue or aggravating. And so spicy and sour are very aggravating to Sun and Leo related issues. Now, as far as balancing tastes are concerned, the best thing for Pitta is sweet and also bitter. And when I say sweet, I'm not talking about candy, cookie, chocolate, right? I'm not talking about your Hershey's chocolate. I'm not talking about your gummies, especially not your sour gummies, right? But you really do want to avoid processed sugar, because that's aggravating to all the doshas. But healthy natural sugars are actually the best things for an excessive amount of pitta, because it cools. Sweet is a cooling, bitter and sweet are cooling. So they're going to bring a lot of pacification to the excessive amount of heat in the body, and can reduce a lot of the health challenges. So some of my favorite natural sweets that are really pitta pacifying: maple syrup, grade A, organic dark maple syrup; jaggery, sucanat, brown sugar, organic natural brown sugars. These are, honey is sweeting. So, I mean, honey is sweeting. That's funny. Honey is heating. So you do have to be careful with honey if you have sun or pitta related issues in your system. And as far as grains are concerned, wheat is heating. So for a pitta pacifying thing, they love wheat, but it's not necessarily the best. White long grain basmati rice is very cooling. So that could be very pitta pacifying to the system. So for sun related issues, I like to encourage the moon grain, which is rice and white rice, because the bran on the rice of brown rice actually is pitta aggravating. So you do have to consider these many subtleties when it comes to, if you're having serious related pitta issues, sometimes the simplest is better. You know what I mean? So some white basmati rice, ghee. I can't encourage ghee enough as being pitta pacifying. Usually if I have sun related issues with the individual, I have them consume as much ghee as possible. People say, well, ghee has fat, ghee has cholesterol. Actually, it doesn't really affect your heart in a negative way, because it's the proteins in butter that really kind of block your heart and create arterial issues. So it's the ghee is very essential. And by the way, yogurt is fermented, so that's not going to be good for a sun or Leo related issue as well. So that sweet taste is really going to be pacifying. And I know not everyone is a vegetarian out there, but there are certain meats that you can eat that aren't heating, and certain meats that are. So you do want to consider that. You do want to eat cooler meats. White meat is heating. You know what I mean? Because it doesn't have that sweetness to it. So actually, if you have pitta related issues, you do want to eat the dark meat of the chicken. Beef is heating. So if you have pitta related issues, your cheeseburgers, your steaks are not ideal. There are certain red meats which are cooling, like the buffalo, the bison. So you just want to consider, okay, I'm kind of avoiding white meat, turkey, chicken, and beef if I have sun related issues. And now I'm having dark meat chicken. I'm having bison. I'm having buffalo. Fish is from a salted ocean. And that's another taste that you want to avoid if you have pitta related, sun, Leo related issues, is salty food. Really avoid salty food if you have sun, Leo, pitta related issues. And I was going to mention that fish come from the ocean and have a lot of salt in them. So fish isn't really, a lot of things that people say are healthy. When we understand, when we look at Ayurveda, nothing is really inherently healthy and nothing is really inherently unhealthy, but it really has to do with the unique constitution of the individual, the Ayurvedic dosha, right? The pulse, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and its ratio. And then we can see that through the medical astrology. That's one of the most amazing things about medical astrology. Dr. Vasant Lad's teacher, he was a great astrologer, and he used to be able to look at the astrology chart and tell you what your doshas were. Isn't that incredible? Tell you the ratios of your doshas, all of your health vulnerabilities. So there's lots of different ways to do it. I've even seen it or heard it explained. Someone could read your pulse and write down your astrology chart.
Wow.
So it goes both ways in terms of the sister sciences of Ayurveda and Jyotish. They're so deeply connected. And I always say this, do you want to work on your body to help heal your spirit? Because then you have Ayurveda. Or do you want to work on your karma to help heal your body? And that's where you have Jyotish. So beautiful synastry there between the two systems. Another thing that's really good to incorporate into your diet are bitter foods. Bitter foods like kale, leafy greens, these kind of more bitter things are good. We'll get into herbs next, but these kind of bitter things are very helpful. So, salads are good for Pitta, kale, chard, mustard greens, broccoli, baby broccoli, asparagus. And I just wanted to mention, as far as diet, before we start getting into the herbs, the triple C, Dr. Vasant Lad, you have Pitta related issues. Try to incorporate the triple C into your diet, and it will improve all of your systems in your body. And that is cucumber, coconut, and cilantro. The three big C's for Pitta pacifying is so oils are important as well, because a lot of times, especially if you eat out, a lot of heavy oils are used in the cooking of things, and they might be pacifying to your dosha, or they might be extremely aggravating. And so you have to be really careful. And so there are certain oils which are more pacifying for sun-related issues and Leo-related issues. And those are the more bitter oils or the sweeter oils. So olive oil, very Pitta pacifying, great for sun-related issues. And we know that it's good for the heart too. So there's that connection as well. Coconut oil, really good that's probably my favorite go-to oil for sun-related issues is coconut oil and olive oil. So, if you having these issues, you're not sure what to eat and what not to eat, it's very simple. Eat basmati rice. If you're not a vegetarian, some of the cooling meats that we talked about, sweet fruits, avoid the sour, avoid the spicy. But if you're really trying to get your digestion and your Pitta pacifying back into balance, because it's horribly out of balance, Dr. Lada would suggest simplification. So have some basmati rice with ghee and just eat that for a while, and your digestion will slowly become Pitta pacified as a result of just trying to simplify your diet with Pitta pacifying foods. So I really do encourage a simple Pitta pacifying diet if these issues are out of order, and as a preventative maintenance, just some of the guidelines that we talked about as far as the diet in terms of Pitta pacification, what to avoid, what to kind of emphasize. So I hope that diet discussion was interesting before we start getting into the herbs.
So Kṣaṇāti, in case of Vata pushing Pitta for the sun, right? Like you had mentioned, if someone is a Leo ascendant and their sun goes into, for example, 7th house, which is like, or in Saturn. So that's Vata pushing Pitta. So are they going to be following Pitta, Vata pacifying as well as Pitta pacifying diet?
Great question, Navjeet. So it gets complicated when you add more of the other doshic imbalances into it. And that's why, if there are multiple doshas at play here, it is helpful to get the advice of a Ayurvedic practitioner, medical astrologer. But there are certain things that you can do, because if you study Ayurveda, there are certain things that pacify multiple doshas. And so, for example, if it's just a Pitta issue, you want to emphasize both sweet and bitter. But if it's Vata pushing Pitta, bitter aggravates Vata. So then you can't really have the cold, salad stuff, because that's going to aggravate Vata, and then it's actually going to cause more of an issue. But sweet pacifies Vata and Pitta.
Right.
So it's just emphasized. So if you have vata pushing pitta, not as much of the bitter things, you kind of want to avoid them and just focus on the sweet things, you know, and really encourage the sweet grains and the sweet meats, because also, you know, for a lot of times meat isn't really considered food in Ayurveda, but it is considered a medicine. So a lot of times when we talk about Ayurveda, we are kind of using meat as a medicine, especially for significant things. Just a little comment on that. If you're like, why is he talking about meat so often? It's because Dr. Lad uses meat as a medicine, and it's not considered a food the way that Americans and Westerners consider it food, but it has been used as a medicine for thousands of years in India, because the concept of ahimsa is nonviolence.
Right.
But when you could be taking with prayer and gratitude, if you're not taking care of your physical body, that's violence against yourself. So it's another way of thinking about it too, which is if I pray and I'm thankful that the bones of this goat are going to the healing of my asti dhatu, then I'm actually taking care of myself. So it's not so cut and dry or black and white as we always perceive it, especially when it comes to not taking care of our physical bodies, which is a form of self-violence. So yeah, if there's multiple doshas in play, now it gets a little more difficult when you have, like, let's say vata, and we'll discuss this in other videos, when you have vata and kapha issues both, because, well, you know, vata is pacified by sweet, but kapha is aggravated by sweet. So it's a little bit easier to treat vata and pitta together than it is to treat vata and kapha together. And you can treat pitta and kapha together too, because guess what? Both of those things are remedied by bitter. So again, it's really about, okay, well, I understand the doshas. I need to understand what's going to aggravate that dosha, and I need to avoid it. And if there's multiple doshas, where can I find the common ground? If it's vata and pitta, I got to find sweet. If it's pitta and kapha, I got to find bitter. And you kind of work with the intricacies of your diet. But the more doshas that are involved in the health issue, the more limited your diet is going to be, because you're going to have to be playing around with the balancing of the situation.
Thank you.
For sure, for sure. So as far as herbs that I want to recommend for the balance of sun-related issues, because the sun is the heart, right? And so a lot of issues that kind of show up with the heart have to do with the sun, and they have to do with the Leo. And so there are some very specific herbs which I like to focus on for the heart, which are very beneficial. And so my favorite herb for sun and Leo and heart related issues is Arjuna. If you're not familiar with Arjuna, it's a beautiful herb that is used to treat the heart and the blood. And it's really good also energetically. We talked about some of the emotional issues that can come, lack of confidence, lack of empowerment. And we all know Arjuna from the Bhagavad Gita, what a man of courage and power and fulfilling of the karmic duty. So this helps you kind of awaken that power of Arjuna inside of yourself, come in the confidence and power with yourself. And this relates to the heart. It's all very macro and microcosmic. So when you're working with the heart, the Arjuna. Now, a lot of the chemicals that are in Arjuna are fat soluble. So you don't want to just take it in a form of the hot water with the hot tea. Some chemicals are water soluble. Some chemicals are fat soluble. Usually with the Arjuna, especially if we're dealing with heart, pitta, sun, Leo related issues, we use milk. Now, if you're lactose intolerant, use a high fat milk substitute like coconut milk or cashew cream or almond cream. And what you do is you take a half teaspoon of the powder and you cook it in the milk or the milk substitute, like you would be making a hot chocolate, except it's a hot Arjuna. And you take that hot Arjuna, it's strongest on an empty stomach in the morning, and it can also be relaxing before bed. So I do like the hot Arjuna milk as a great Pitta pacifying, sun, heart related issue, and also the energetic psychological side of it for improving the sun related health dushti. Now, there are other issues that kind of show up because the Pitta related issues, they can have a lot to do with ama. Ama is the toxicity in the body, and there could be Pitta with ama issues or Pitta without ama issues. And the more ama is, the more serious it is. And it's harder to kind of get your body's intelligence, like I was mentioning earlier, in alignment so that you're craving and doing the right things, the higher the level of ama is. And a lot of times we can determine the amount of ama in the body through the tongue. Pitta type ama actually shows up on the tongue as a yellowish kind of tint on the tongue towards the central and the back of the tongue. It's yellow because Pitta is yellow. And so you can kind of see if you have Pitta ama type issues, if when you stick your tongue in the mirror or under a microscope, is there a yellowing, because they could show Pittagenic ama. I'll spare everyone my tongue right now, but maybe in a future video, I'll do a tongue graph to understand how do we assess the different doshas through the tongue, because tongue diagnosis, it's really one of the beautiful things about Ayurveda. Right. So if you do have Pittagenic ama issues, before you can really treat all of the ama, all of the Pitta in the system, you have to reduce the Pitta am. So to reduce the Pitta am, my favorite herb for that is Gaduchi. Gaduchi, which is the purifier or the cleanser. And you would take a half teaspoon of Gaduchi with hot water 3 times a day to reduce the Pittagenic am. And it is tri-doshic, even though it kind of focuses on Pittagenic am. It's really not bad for any particular dosha. That's why a lot of times in herbal formulas or Ayurvedic formulas, it has a high ratio because it's a very tridoshic safe herb. But if you do have bacterial or toxicity related issues, I like to go with the Gaduchi for that. So here's another Sun, Leo, Pitta related herb, especially in ama toxicity conditions. And there are certain things you can see in the chart which might actually show a predisposition to am, such as Rahu representing toxins, right? So you have a Leo Rahu, Sun Rahu, Rahu 5th house. You're very vulnerable to the Pittagenic ama, and this is some of the Gaduchi is going to be really helpful for you, and avoiding some of the bacterial type things that can be, that can have bacteria in them because they're more vulnerable to sticking in your body. I'm a Rahu ascendant. When I've traveled the world, I've gotten parasites. So you do have to be careful with this kind of thing, Sun, Rahu, Leo, Rahu, kind of energies in your chart. A couple other herbs that I want to mention. One of the best herbs for immediately cooling the system when it's excessive in Pitta, it is used by the goddess Nariti to ward off all death and destruction, is the great neem. Neem. And I love neem. I mean, neem is, even in the Western study of neem, it's antiviral, it's anti-cancer, it's antibacterial, it's antifungal. So, I mean, a lot of the things, even scientifically, has proven that neem wards off disease. And even in the mythology, the goddess Nariti carries the neem plant with her and it wards off disease. So we have to understand that neem is a very, very good herb. It's so cold though. So you do want to make sure that it's only a Pitta related issue, because it can aggravate Vat. It can aggravate Kapha. So we do want to understand if it's a Pitta related issue and only a Pitta related issue, neem is one of my favorite herbs. And that one is water soluble. You can take a half teaspoon of neem tea mixed with hot water, and it'll really cool you down. If, let's say, you're just a really Pitta person and you just worked out at the gym and you were punching and kicking and running on the treadmill for an hour, go home and have a little bit of neem tea and it'll cool you down. It'll relax you. So that's another really good herb for the sun related, Leo related issues. And it's also good for the heart. So those are the main 3 herbs. I'm going to do 3 herbs for each planet. And when we get into the other planets, we'll talk about both of the signs associated with that planet. But for Sun, for Leo, for fifth house related issues, we're looking at Arjuna, we're looking at Gaduchi, and we're looking at Neem. So I hope that's helpful. This is just a brief introduction on medical astrology as it relates to the sun. But I hope that those of you that are Leo ascendant, Sun Atmakarika, power packed fifth houses, strong planets in Leo, and have some of these pittogenic issues in your system, I hope our time together was helpful today. Thank you, Navjeet, for this opportunity to honor my teacher, Dr. Vasant Lad, as I get back into a focus on medical astrology.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Kṣaṇāti, for joining us, and thank you for sharing such a profound information on medical astrology. I've learned a lot. And if anyone is looking for medical astrology consultations, please, I'll leave a link below for Kṣaṇāti. You can connect with him. And hope you guys can find these herbs at your local health food stores or online. But if you don't, I'll leave a link behind here for my online website. So we do carry them. So if you guys need anything, you can connect with us in that way. Thank you so much. Hope you guys all enjoyed. Thank you, Kṣaṇāti.
Thank you. Namaste.